Okay, morning everyone. So today's practice or today's chat is, I called it Wind, Rain, Darkness, an Autumnal Survival Guide. Um, today's is going to be a little more practical, a little more addressing of life in the physical world right now. As at least in the Pacific Northwest, we've gone what to me feels like had a very kind of sudden shift into the autumn season. And I notice just a lot of the elemental forces that are active in my environment, and also kind of noticing the effect through my body and my mind, my kind of inner realm. So it just felt like it could be helpful to have, just more of that practical piece this week. And many of you will know that my background is in the yoga tradition, and I never became an Ayurvedic practitioner per se, but Ayurveda has been a large part of what has helped me to live in balance in my own body and throughout the cycles and seasons. So I just offer a deep bow to that lineage, to the Ayurvedic tradition and the lands and people from which that has arisen, and gratitude for the privilege of having been a student um, in that field. So the piece from the Ayurvedic tradition that I'll share with you that has elements that are what's the word, like, for anyone observing the natural world, you may have an intuition about this without really needing the necessarily the framework, but sometimes the framework can help give language to what we're observing and are experiencing. So in the Ayurvedic tradition, the season of autumn is considered to be ruled by the air element, or if you're familiar with the dosha language, it's the Vata dosha. In fact, all of the seasonal turning points have a quality of the air element, because air helps things move. So anywhere where there's that mobile transitionary quality, the air element is active, but it's most active at the fall season. That's kind of its dominant place. So elementally, at least in the northern hemisphere, we're seeing darker days. We're seeing the leaves falling. We're seeing the wind picking up. In the Pacific Northwest, our rainy days are starting to come. Energetically, there's a lot metabolizing, that energy of compost that we played with last week, and we'll be playing with a little bit through the month. Like, there's a lot that's transforming its physical state from one state to another. So change is a real energetic actor. And there's a number of different qualities to that air element that the discipline of Ayurveda has different approaches to addressing. But I'm going to bring in just 3 to keep it a little more manageable. So we'll look at just 3 of the qualities of that air element and how they're showing up, and how to respond in a therapeutic and balancing way. The first is that air has a drying quality. And if you think about, like, a blow dryer or the wind, the clothes on a drying line and the wind blowing on it, there's a drying quality to the air element that has, again, is a powerful force, and can, when it's out of balance, can be cause brittleness, cause kind of a lack of nutrient retention. you think about just like when your skin dries out and sort of the cracking that can happen there. So the therapeutic balancing um, process with that quality is what's this word that we don't use very often, but in Ayurveda, it's called the quality of unctuous or oily. So there, you might think the automatic like opposite of dry is wet or moist, but and it is that it's a moist quality. There's a quality of moisture retention, but particularly with an oiliness. So that's that kind of balancing quality to the dry air element. The second quality that we'll address is that the air element is very cooling, and this is maybe kind of an obvious or intuitive balancing um, part, which obviously as the days get colder, we put on layers. Like we want to keep warm. There's a rise in the purchase of warm beverages. There's a sort of a natural movement towards those warming foods and warming states and nights around the hearth fire. So that is another balancing effect. And then the last quality of the air element that we'll address is that it's erratic. So it's mobile and erratic. There's a inconsistent, it kind of just moves where there's an opportunity to move, right? Like the wind. And again, there's a real power to that helps with the transformations that are occurring at this time of year. And in excess, it can feel totally ungrounding. I notice often in the fall, I'll have just a little more anxiety, a little more busy mind, a tendency towards getting busy in a way that feels scattered. And I also will often notice effects in my sleep. So if I stay up a little too late, or I'm a little too, if I'm on a device a little too late into the evening, I will often have a more active mind that disturbs my sleep. So I have to be just a little more guarded or a little more routinized around those parts of my life. So the balancing quality to that erratic nature of air element is routine and stability. So let's consider a little more practically what this means. Of course, as I was saying, like some of it follows our natural inclinations. And if we're kind of observing the outside world, so the trees have now stopped producing, for the most part, the plants and trees have stopped producing that up and outward way. They're shedding all of the kind of unnecessary external, parts of their bodies. And the trajectory, even though there is some external tending still needing to happen, right? There's still maybe some harvest being brought in. Kids are still in school, all the things. There's still some external requirements, but the trajectory is inward and downward, inward and downward, inward and downward. So what I have found for myself and what I try to support others when we are working on that very like practical physical level is that as much as we can align with like allow the change and the transformation and the mobility, the movement that wants to happen, allow that to happen, and offer or orient with some balance towards that inward and downward trajectory, and with the balancing qualities of warming, stability, and unctuous or oily, which really translates into nourishment. It's really that quality of what is going to really nourish and satiate. So on a practical level, the first one that I always offer for folks, especially if they're prone to anxiety or kind of spun up during the season, is the daily warm sesame oil massage. You don't have to get super fancy about this. You can get sesame oil, so it's like that the unrefined. It's like not cooking oil, right? But you can get it at most like health stores. Um, and what I will do is I just will have a little bottle of it, and I'll put a hot water in a mug, and I'll stick the little bottle of oil in the mug to warm it. And if you don't have a lot of time, you could just do it on your hands and feet. You could just do it like on your hands and the back of your neck. Just that little gesture can be just a little bit of that unctuous and warming quality as a balance to the dryness um, and the coolness of that air element. And I love that. That is like one of the things that keeps me, um, I guess, sane in this season. If the getting the oil and stuff is a little too much, just do the self massage. Like you can warm your hands together with a little friction, and just do like a little massage on your hands and a little massage on your feet and the back of your neck. It could take literally 1 minute. If you do that when you wake up or before you go to bed, it's one way to add just a little bit of nourishment, a little bit of warmth to your soma, to your body systems. The second one I'll offer, it relates to routine. And especially kind of as our days are getting darker, I really encourage folks and try myself to get up at the same time every day and to get a few minutes of sunlight, or if not first thing, soon in the morning. Um, I'll admit this one is very hard for me. So I do not do this perfectly. Um, but the routine of getting up as close as possible with the sun is that is a real kind of staple of the Ayurvedic tradition, um, and helps to again bring in some of that warmth, bring in some of that stability that helps to balance the erratic nature of the air element in this season. So because there's um, already change happening, this is a good season to start, stop, or shift habits. So you can really, this is sort of the third part that I wanted to share. You can really take advantage of the forces of change that are occurring in this season, the forces of metabolism and transformation and shedding and shifting, to assess and sort of suss out what's ready to change or transform in your own ecology. So, if you don't have a kind of regular morning routine or regular evening routine, this is actually a good time. Like the energies are lined up to support change. So it's a good time to enact some of that. One of the sort of natural and often instinctual things is to clean out your clothes, clean out the like summer clothes, and maybe shift them just to your winter or fall wardrobe, but also like to actually clean out what you don't want anymore. And I did this in October. Actually, I just and it wasn't like I was really planning it. It was just like something doesn't quite feel right anymore, and yep, time to get rid of a bunch of these clothes. So that's something I know that people kind of do instinctually at this time of year, and you can do it with a little more consciousness about letting it be sort of a way of honoring and being in alignment with the energies that are moving. And the last thing I'll offer here is to err on the side of simplicity. The body and the ecology are doing a lot of metabolizing and digesting of what we've been experiencing through the whole year so far. This is the part where the time of year when we go into like deep digestion, and when the land goes into deep digestion, right? Like all of the layers of um, material that were not, harvested or needed for feeding the other bodies and beings on the land, right? They're going back into the earth. They're dying and returning to the earth. So there's a metabolic process that's already on its way. And we don't have to do too much for that. Um, but what we can do to assist that is to simplify the labor that we're putting on our physical bodies and all on our um, relational bodies, our familial bodies on our land, so that that process can take place in as clear a way and at as deep a level as possible. So this is why often in the Ayurvedic tradition, they'll lead folks through a seasonal cleanse. This often happens at this fall and spring junctures. And I'm not going to go deeply into that right now. There are practitioners who can take you through that if you're interested. You can ask me about it if you're interested. But the sort of principle, one of the principles with that is to really simplify as much as possible what we're taking in. Um, Simpler foods, simpler sensory stimulus, fewer plans, um, fewer demands on the land, on our time, on our relationship, if possible, so that that metabolization and digestion can happen on those deeper levels and layers, so that the backlog of kind of untended material, and that's physical material, but it's also emotional, spiritual. It it will go to whatever layer we will allow it to go. We give it the space to go. Um, so orienting towards simplicity toward in this season is, yeah, one of the great therapeutic therapeutic gestures, which can be very difficult. That's not the way that at least in dominant culture, our world is designed, especially as we're moving towards holidays. We'll spend a little more time with this in the coming weeks, but yeah, I feel like I'm always a broken record about this. We tend to amp up during this time of year when the natural world is doing the exact opposite. So there can often be this sort of dissonance. At least I felt this great dissonance between like how I was kind of expected to perform in the wider culture and how my body as a part of the natural world was feeling drawn to respond to the season. So that's what I'll leave us with, just like an encouragement towards simplicity, however that looks for you. And not we're not most of us. I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably not a monk or a hermit that has the unlimited time to come to withdraw into that winter season. So it's not something that there's any reason to be perfectionistic about it. We do have to maintain our lives, and just in there's an invitation to consider what could simplicity look like for you in your particular context that would be sustainable and gentle and the just right amount. So, yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for now. In closing, I do want to just share that if you haven't heard about or haven't considered yet our Roots and Rhythms community practice, I would love for you to consider joining this time. If you have an interest in living in a more seasonal way of tuning in to the rhythms of the earth and the rhythms of our bodies in a way that orients us towards a more sustainable, more easeful relationship with the web of life, I would love to have you join. Um, our We meet seasonally at the quarter and cross quarter days, as well as at the new moons and the full moons, and it's really designed as a way to reconnect with the Earth calendar, for personal balance and well-being, as well as collective liberation. The At this time, I've been offering it on a sliding scale. That's probably going to change. So if you want to take advantage of that sliding scale, I encourage you to sign up this month. And let's see, the next thing that you'll be able to join us for, I'm just going to check my calendar about that. It is probably one of the moon rhythms. Let's see, I think it's the new moon rhythm. Yeah. Our next circle is the new moon on November 23rd. So if you join, you'll be able to join us for that. You'll also be able to join us for solstice in December. And I just posted our next quarterly grief ritual, which will be happening in February. So you'll be able to join us for that as well, and lots of other things. So I'll leave the link to that in the chat below. And I would love to welcome you into that circle. All right, folks, stay warm, stay stable, grounded, and many blessings to your Friday.